Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor wearing a silk scarf. I'm going to be reviewing the album Peace, Flygod by Westside Gunn. And it's a mixtape. And if you know anything about your old Professor Sky, it's that I don't really understand what a mixtape is. I mean, I understand it's supposed to be a fluid term. In general, it refers to rap albums that don't aspire or are not asked to be taken as seriously as like a regular LP. And that's okay. I'm just going to allow myself to be a little bit confused by this project, trying to figure out what it is. It's following up with Westside Gunn's last two projects, which are my favorite projects I've ever heard. Quick caveat, I only started listening to Griselda with their full-length album WWCD. So I've never listened to anything they've made before that, and I've reviewed almost everything since then. As I say, I will stop reviewing them when they stop making great music. What I like about this mixtape, whatever that means, is that it's really showing off his ability to curate, which I think Westside Gunn often says that that's his greatest skill, his ability to find artists and put them together. In this case, he's taking SD Knack, the rapper, he's taking the rapper Flygod Cooks, and then he's mixing in some of these producers that he's found and making a sort of project that shows them all off. The one thing I would say is most of the production is handled by someone named Don Carrera, and his production style, I think, is the guiding light behind this whole project, behind this whole mixtape. And I think it's even reflected in the art. If you see the front cover of the art, it's like this spray paint thing with this guy wearing a fez. It's very kind of confusing, and the words are a little bit out of order, the letters are a little bit out of order, things don't quite make sense. And that really is the sound of this album, of this mixtape. It is very confusing. It is very cascading. Like, the sounds are so layered, it's really hard to pick things up. And I think that comes partly from this style. Now, it's called a Westside Gunn album, but I think realistically we should call this a Westside Gunn, Flygod Cooks, and SD Knack album, because all three of them appear on it basically in equal parts. Flygod Cooks, if you've watched my coverage of Westside Gunn before, you know that I love what Flygod Cooks because he will often take over the singing parts that Westside Gunn used to do. And I like Westside Gunn, but obviously his style is sort of aggravating, intentionally aggravating. And so to have someone with a much cooler, lower voice singing the hooks works much better. Of course, he's also just a good rapper as well, although I do find his insistence on constantly rapping about being at the stove and cooking crack to be a little bit boring. He gets a little bit away from that on this album, which is nice, when he references directly Syracuse, where he's from. I do live in Western New York, so I am happy that Syracuse and Buffalo are being represented here. Speaking of places where I've lived, SD Knack is the other primary voice on this album, and apparently he's from Lynn. And I grew up outside of Boston, and if you grew up anywhere near Boston and someone says the name Lynn to you, you all sing the same little rhyme. Lynn, Lynn, city of sin, you don't come out the way you went in. That's just the famous line from Lynn. I've been there. It's a fine place. But it is fun to have this sort of other voice. And this is, again, what Westside Gunn is able to do. He's able to find these rappers. I mean, SD Knack has been around for a long time, according to what I read. And interesting, he's also of Dominican descent, so there's a different sort of cultural aspect there, which comes through in some of the lyrics here. And Westside Gunn is able to put it all together. And I think what's great is the way SD Knack's rapping goes along with Don Carrera's beats. And even though this is just a mixtape and he releases so much music, right? Griselda releases so much music, this really has a personality. This mixtape has a personality. It's noisy. It's over-layered. It's over-ad-libbed. It's over-voiced. It's just over everything. It's a completely cacophonous album, to the point where I'd almost say it reaches the level of anti-music. I kind of go back to always whenever I refer to anti-music, I think a lot of the production of Public Enemy by the Bomb Squad. I almost said The Public Enemy. Dad alert. Are you listening to The Public Enemy? It reminds me of Public Enemy's production by Bomb Squad, whose stated goal was to destroy music. And this isn't quite as abrasive as that Bomb Squad production, But definitely with the combination of Knack's bizarre style, very hard to place, very hard to parse his words, and then this production, it's a very singular sounding album. Even though Westside Gunn releases so many albums, this doesn't sound like Hitler Wears Hermes 8 Side B, which doesn't sound like Hitler Wears Hermes 8 Side A, which doesn't sound like Pray for Paris. He's able to do so much, despite the fact that he himself, Westside Gunn, limits his rapping to just crime and flexing and talking about having stuff. It's amazing how varied the whole Griselda enterprise is, despite the limitations that they place on themselves lyrically. So, let me give you an example of this album. It's going to be my stamp of the album. You can click on the light up there to hear it. It's called Ritz Barlton, produced by Don Carrera, who produced about half this album, and featuring Este Knack. Este Knack. We'll go with Knack. When I'm telling you this album is unsettling and kind of anti-music, just listen to this beat. It's a great drum beat, but then there's this like piano that's like warbled, and it seems like someone's like resting their sleepy elbows on the record player as it goes, and eventually there's this warbled saxophone. And then we have Este Knack's verse, which is just, I mean, already with Westside Gunn, we have someone in the school of what I consider to be the school of Ghostface Killah, in which the content of what you're saying doesn't really matter. It just matters that you have a good flow, good cadence, choose good words, have interesting rhymes, sort of vibe before the term vibe became known, right? This kind of just words and beautiful sounds going together. And I'll give you an example. Few should pour us, help and clear the future, fight the feeling, we add our nightclub hours, see that's the type of chilling. So it's just like, what are the few should pour us? Helping, is he rapping, is he rhyming us with hours? Feeling and chilling? Just, and all throughout this album, Knack is able to do that, just create these very unlikely rhymes, unlikely lines. His delivery is so straightforward that it's a little bit surprising that he manages to be so odd in actually what he's rapping. Speaking of odd, the lighting on this video is insane. It's raining outside. I use natural light. I look like an absolute ghoul. This is terrible. Subscribe if you like your professor looking like a ghoul. Smash the like bucket. Tell me what you think of this album in comparison to other Westside Gunn albums. I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep looking ghoulish for you. And then Westside Gunn comes in, and what I like here is it changes the beat a little bit. If I had one complaint about this album, and I guess this is maybe a trait of, I don't know, of a mixtape, is that it's not really, a lot of the beats don't really develop. It's just like one beat and it goes and then the rhyme, it's over. But here, they're like the drums are moved out a little bit. Very simple Westside Gunn rhymes. Dick sucks at the halfway house, feel like the Ritz. Just a really good grimy line from Westside Gunn, one of the best. And then there's this outro. And I swear, the outro just makes me want to puke. The saxophone and piano and the beat is great, but like the drum beat is great, but just, and it's a great example of how this album really keeps you unsettled. On most of the tracks, it keeps you unsettled by its ridiculous amounts of layers, but in this case, it keeps you unsettled by this warbling sound. So I'm going to go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker, opening up with the title track piece Flygod. And this is featuring A.A. Rashid, who is a spoken word artist who I'm now familiar with because he's been on a lot of Griselda projects. He's not at his best, so I do really like him here. But in general, he's like a hype man. He just is there to tell you how great the people who are rapping is. I wasn't born to try to figure out what somebody else don't know. That's a good line. Promise you, so here we are again. I'm still wondering, where the F is this? Where y'all getting this ish from, man? What is this, some kind of hip-hop wizardry? And I do like that. I do like A.A. Rashid because he's sort of the voice of the Griselda fan. Where we just go like, how are you doing this? How was that? How was the Conway album so good? How was the Benny album so good? How is the Westside Gunn album so good? And they all been in the last couple months. And then the year before, you came out with albums that were even better. You know, what is this? Some kind of hip hop wizardry? Okay, a nice kind of soul sample that's cut pretty short. Next song is called Jesus Crack, again by Don Carrera. This is basically a posse cut because it has everybody on it. It's a very long song. It doesn't seem like a posse cut, at least as far as the beat goes. Another odd, unsettling sample. These wailing voices, they're just layered over and over. And I don't know. Again, I talk a lot about underground hip-hop. I do a lot of videos about it. I get a lot of support from underground hip-hop. But, like, I'm not, like, one of those guys who, like, knows everything, you know? Like, I don't pretend to be. So maybe Don Carrera has been around for decades and decades, and I've been sleeping on him, and okay. But to me, this has been a discovery. And I really enjoy this edition and this feeling of, where are you getting these producers? You know? I mean, just in the last couple of years, you've introduced me to all these amazing producers like Craven and Conductor Williams. Now there's another one, Don Carrera. I really like Estenac style here. Again, this just weird, like, it's almost like he doesn't give himself enough time to say everything. It's almost incomprehensible, just line after line after line. But it's not like he's not good at his craft, but that he's doing something different. I like Westside Gunn's verse. It feels to me like it's a conscious reference to one of my favorite verses by Ghostface Killah. Both hands clusty, looking like my man Rusty. Blow off the burner, kind of dusty, I believe is the lyric. And, you know, this starts off with, Ayo, Wraith, getting dusty. Don't nobody love me like my kids and my junkies. Okay. Westside Gunn says he is not the lyricist. I believe him. He's the architect, he's the fashion guy, he's the fashion rebel. Good for him. But let's take a second to appreciate this truly despicable lyric. Don't nobody love me like my kids and my junkies. His kids are going to grow up someday. They're going to read that. It's okay. Something's live, something's wasn't lucky. St. Michael Vallone rips in my donkeys. Now this is, I don't know what his donkeys are, but I will say that if you're a fan of Video Game Donkey like I am, it's hard not to think about Video Game Donkey when he talks about Donkey, and then the rapper who's all of this album's name is Knack, and Donkey's favorite video game is a game called Knack 2. It's just a coincidence. I'm sure there's no crossover. I mean, Kanye did crossover with Donkey, so maybe there is crossover. Maybe the Donkey takeover of hip-hop is really happening here. I really like the end of this. What I like about this song, more than any other song on the album, Jesus Crack, is that it's the most unified. It's unified around this, frankly, sacrilegious theme of, like, Jesus and crack. My main fiend, a white boy, long hair, blue eyes, we call him Jesus Crack. Is this a reference to, like, his new fiends or me, you know, or you, or the underground hip-hop heads who are watching this, you know, that, like, most of the people who support him now have blonde hair and blue eyes, you know? I don't know. But I will tell you this. If Jesus were alive today, he would look a lot more like Westside Gunn than he would look like me. He would not have this hair color. He would not have these eyes. That's a bunch of European propaganda bull. So... Don't believe it. He's wasn't a white guy. Don't know what to tell you, bud. That's just historically accurate. But bullets through ya, we cleared the plate, turned into Luga, Tesla Jeep, playing Grand Poobah, and then they actually quote, like, the group Brand Nubian, and actual verse from Grand Poobah, kind of an old school hip hop thing. I really like this little interlude here because it breaks up the beat, it kind of throws back to older hip hop, and it gives it that mixtape feel, I guess, like I'm hearing different songs here. Then comes Stove God's sacrilegious verse, for God so loved the world, he gave us cocaine, which, you know, for God so loved the world, he gave us his only son, I believe is the actual line from the Bible. So it really is Jesus Crack. I can't tell, you know, is this just a verse about, like, crack and selling crack? Is this a song just about selling crack? Or is it a weird sort of metaphor for like hip hop music buyers, crack as music, which I've often argued is what the whole Griselda operation is about. That's why I think they release so much, because they took the sort of crack volume basis of sales and applied it to their music. Then it ends with this weird freestyle by someone named Eastside Flip. I don't know. This guy makes 2 appearances on the album, and I don't know who he is. And again, all you underground hip hop heads, tell me in the comments, how can I not know Eastside Flip? Eastside Flip released the greatest album in the history of the world, and I just don't know. But I really like this freestyle because it's just his voice and some reverb. I get the sense this is maybe somebody who died. I don't know. I don't know who Eastside Flip is. I'm just a ghoul sitting in his room. I really don't like the lighting on this. I don't know who Eastside Flip is, but I really like it because having this a cappella voice with the slight echo, it is a reminder that beneath all of this cacophony of production, there are real artists making interesting rhymes. Big Ass Bracelet, maybe the best song on the album. I really like this one. Again, produced by Don Carrera. A full soul sample. I did track it down. I'm not going to sample snitch because people don't like it when you sample snitch. But I will tell you, it's not hard to sample snitch. If you can hear what they're singing. In this case, like, as I watched him board the plane, you just put that in quotes and then you put lyrics. And the first thing that pops up is it. And it's fun. I like listening to the samples, okay? I can't help it. I like listening to songs that are sampled. I enjoy listening to this weird old 70s kind of soul song, and then listening to Big Ass Bracelet right next to it. I enjoy the way that hip-hop takes and interpolates and recreates. So I suggest you do that, but don't sample snitch. This is maybe Westside Gunn's best verse. He makes reference to blaming Reagan for the crack epidemic, which always makes me happy. He also says, "You ever tipped a waitress so well that you effed her?" Just again, there's something I like about Westside Gunn, about how crass he is, and I think that's maybe part of what makes him so appealing, is that he really is, this next wave of high fashion. He is making it to Paris Fashion Week, but he doesn't have the polish or the sheen or the sort of artistic aura of Kanye or Jay-Z or any of the other rappers who came before. Like, he really just shows up and just seems like the kind of person who would just say something like, "You ever tip a waitress so much she effed you?" I really like that energy. A cool sort of chorus in here, which is just this woman saying, "Who's that? The big ass bracelet." Then we get Stove God Cooks, who makes 2 references to Syracuse, which just makes me happy. I always love it. It makes me happy to hear, because Syracuse is an interesting town. I didn't know it had a rap scene. But again, Syracuse, don't think about the stupid basketball team. Think about the fact it produced Lou Reed and Stove God Cooks. Is that not the United States of America? What more do you want from a city? Ends with this weird sample of someone called Onion the Crackhead. I don't know where this is from. It's interesting. But again, the themes of crack are pretty prevalent here. Bobby Roode, again produced by Don Carrera. I think this is a wrestler. There's been a lot less wrestling in Griselda stuff lately, which is a bummer, because I usually contact my buddy John, who's a wrestler fan, and ask him, like, "Who is this guy?" And then he tells me. Kind of a stuttered sample again, this cacophonous style. This cacophonous wizardry of Don Carrera, and it goes really well with Estenak's verse, and then just like keeps on. I think Stove God comes on here too and talks about the glory, or no, it's only Knack. I think Knack is the only verse on here. It keeps on talking about the glory. I do like how he talks about Jesus, how Judas betrayed Jesus, or how Brutus betrayed his best friend Julius Caesar. Like, he rhymes Jesus with Caesar, which the rhyme is there. It's there to be made. It doesn't actually rhyme Jesus Caesar, but through the glory of rap and cadence and playing with words and stuff like that, you can make Jesus Caesar. Jesus Caesar. Jeez Caesar. It's cool. It's cool. I've never heard it before. Again, if you're one of those hip-hop heads who's already mad at me for not knowing way too much, Tell me, when has anyone else rhymed Jesus and Caesar? But they're two very good references. In general, Estenac has that. He makes pretty interesting references. Like Judas and Jesus, that's pretty standard. But Brutus and Caesar, that's sort of the next level. He talks about Musa Masa at some point as well. Derek Bowman, this time produced by Madlib, who's someone I have heard of, so don't get mad at me. Cool kind of strings and bass sample. This one is... I really like hearing Westside Gunn because I just hadn't heard him in the last song. I just like hearing his voice again. Stove God Cooks just... He starts off saying, I went Bobby on the digital. I don't know what that means, but I just like it. I just, again, with all these three voices that kind of weave together, I just end up... It's produced in a way where I'm never sick of the album. So I think if I had an album that was like all Stove God, maybe I'd get a little tired of it, or all Este, or all Westside. But the way that it's produced and mixed together, not only am I not sick of it, I'm always excited when I hear, oh, good, Stove God's back. Oh, Westside's back. Horses on Sunset, again produced by Madlib. Very kind of old school Griselda style beat. Like this would really fit in on WWCD, just a xylophone and a hard boom bap drum beat. A great Stove God Cooks chorus. I mean, if you like classic Griselda, this is your song, right? I really enjoy Westside Gunn on here. Just kind of good attack. I really like it. Times it gets quiet. The drums get removed. It's funny because there's this like quiet part of the beat where the drum gets removed and we just hear these sounds, but like nothing is ever allowed to be quiet on this album, because anytime there might be something quiet, there's either like 3 or 4 different voices, like, or just so seriously, it's a very agreeable sensation that it gives, just the atmosphere that gives. It ends with an auction for a Marilyn Monroe painting by Warhol, or silkscreen by Warhol. Again, interesting and fun to hear. His weird little interstitial bits he put on here. Open Praise, produced by Lil Chick and Madlib. I think it's the first song that starts off with a couple AOs. Cool kind of romantic 70s soundtrack. Tons of... basically no drums on the song, which is nice. Again, so many cascading ad-libs everywhere. Just at like a certain point, right? Like he's saying like love turned into envy because I'm way up. That's the line. Great line, right? A great sort of standard hip-hop line about being hated or being envied or whatever. Love turned to envy because I'm way up. And then while he's saying that, like he's saying it in one ear and he's saying it in another ear, and I think there's a third voice as well. There's gunshots in the back. There's him saying, ah! And then there's... like, all these things are happening at once. This is a real cosmic gumbo. Danhausen is produced by Conductor Williams. And I want to thank Reddit, okay? I didn't know this album came out. I don't know what's up with my title. I don't know how many Griselda projects I have to listen to until they start suggesting Griselda projects for me, but the algorithm hasn't caught up to my taste in Buffalo rap music or Buffalo wings. I ate at the Anchor Bar for the first time last week. They really are the best wings in the world if you ever go to Buffalo. So I didn't know this album came out, and the way I learned about it is I am on the Griselda subreddit, and somebody, I don't know who, posted like, let's not even talk about this album. Let's just talk about how whack Conductor's beat is on Danhausen. Like that was his post, was like, Conductor Williams has a bad beat. Now, if you've been watching this channel, you know I love Conductor Williams. To me, it's a toss-up between him and Nicholas Craven as to like who are the best of this generation of what I call the Chain to the Radiators producers. these guys, I guess they're all guys. I don't know if there's any women. Guys just like chained to a radiator and a laptop, just making beat after beat after beat and just never missing. Like frickin' the Hawkeye and the Avengers, like just just shooting just arrow after arrow, just bullseye, bullseye, bullseye. And there's like 10 of these guys chained up to the radiator in the Griselda basement, you know. So I was excited to hear this song because, I don't know, I trust subreddits more or less. You can join my subreddit if you want. And so I was expecting to hear a whack beat. But I didn't hear a whack beat. I heard an awesome beat. Conductor Williams did it again. Swooped out of nowhere and made the best beat on the album. It's insane. It's an insane drum. It's this like horn that's like stuttered. And this is what I'm talking about, that Bomb Squad style, that destroy music style. It's very aggravating. But the drums underneath and like the way the verses come in, there's a point where you think there might be a hook where Westside's like wooden ice. But just not. It's just non-stop. This just honk, 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 honk. It sounds like someone is like choking a duck and playing a drum set. It sounds like someone's playing a drum set with 2 choked ducks, you know? It's a great beat. It really is. So thank you to the person on Reddit who lowered my expectations. I really appreciate it. Because if I have lower expectations, I go in and I end up liking stuff a lot more. Like the new Jurassic Park movie. It's fine. I was told it was going to be the worst movie ever. It was fine. Flip versus Phil. Although, let's go back to the buffalo wings one more time here. I'm going to set your expectations high for eating buffalo wings at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo where they were invented. And it is going to exceed your expectations. They are really that good. Pro tip, order them well done. That's how you get good wings in Buffalo. Because then they're crispy. It's good stuff. Final track is called Flip versus Phil. This is produced by Derringer. I think he's the first producer that was ever chained in the basement of the Griselda Studios. And featuring Eastside Flip as well. I don't know who Eastside Flip is, but he's quite good here. Just a blown out soul sample. The voice is nuts. I don't even really know how to describe this besides just sort of saying like what is going on. This is just crazy. So on my Patreon, every once in a while, I ask if people want me to give them a shout out on a particular artist, and some people wanted to be shouted out. You don't have to pay extra. I just like to do it because they help me buy things. They help me buy my sweet Westside Gunn Dope Cellier Hermes imitation scarf. So thank you to Nicholas Palacios, Brian Insley, and Jordan Flower. I don't know if it's Jordan Flowers or Jordan Flower. My handwriting, not so good. I think it's Jordan Flowers. I'm not sure. Anyways, thank you for supporting the channel. So there you go. I'm curious to know what you all think about this project, because Griselda doesn't make mid. When I first heard this, I was a little skeptical, and then just by halfway through, by the time I sort of hit that like middle stage with the big ass bracelet, I was just like totally in. All right. Until tomorrow, where I'm going to release a special Bastille Day episode. There's the camera.